Everyone. My name is Alice. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the director of this year's Postgraduate Festival at the University of Kent's Paris School of Arts and Culture. Thank you so much for joining us for our kickoff event, Drag and Escapism. This year's festival theme is escapism. The global pandemic has shattered life as we knew it. Through this destruction, the importance of our artistic values has been made clear. Art allows us to escape the repetition of the everyday. Art allows us to inhabit the spaces and bodies that reach beyond our wildest dreams. Art is a tool we can use to construct a new reality. By dedicating a week to artistic endeavors centered around escapism, we invite you to consider the role art plays in your conception of the world. It is time for us to join together as a community and rebuild our world, one that is no longer confined to a physical space. In fact, many of our panelists and guests are joining us from different parts of the world. Before we get started, I'll go over a few housekeeping items. This event will be recorded and the link to rewatch this will be made available in the days to come. There will be time for questions and answers at the end. If you have any questions for our lovely panelists, please send them in using the chat function. Thank you again for joining us. We are so thrilled to have you here and I hope to see you at more of our events. You can visit us online at kentparisfestival.com for more information and registration. And with that, I'll hand it over to my lovely colleague, Charlotte.
Thank you, that was wonderful. I feel like we need good evening, everyone, and good morning, Australia. No, I don't want to bring up that as a British person right now. Rosie, for the first question, over to you. Thank you so much.
Perfect, thanks so much, Charlotte. So I was thinking, Charity, best place to start is at the beginning. So thinking back to your reasonings for getting into whether it was artistic expression with makeup or your kind of first intro into drag. What was the intention? What was the catalyst? And was there any escapism involved?
So ever since I've been young, I've always played around with fashion and makeup and hair, just as a form of expression and a way of feeling like unique and like the outside represented how I felt on the inside. And growing up and turning like 17, 18 and moving to London, I really started to like experiment more with that and more with costuming on nights out and started to host nightclubs and stuff like that. And it was kind of just double dabbling in the scene and trying things out. It wasn't really a career choice for me back then. But then I got diagnosed with HIV at age 18 and my relationship that I was in at the park kind of broke down and it was all quite traumatic to say the least. And I ended up using drag and art as my kind of coping mechanism for that. And in 2017, I did a 365 days of drag challenge, which was kind of like my starting point in drag really. And that was my way of getting, my intention was to get really good at makeup. That's what I thought consciously. But I think now looking back at it, it was my way of escaping from the life that I was living and escaping from my reality, which I found quite stressful and unhappy. And being able to paint on my emotions and these feelings that I had as characters and as, you know, if I would feel sad, I would paint a sad creature, or angry and I'd be a fire demon, and being able to create these creatures and these characters which represented my emotions and feelings kind of gave me that sense of freedom that I don't have to talk to people about them. I don't have to go and tell everyone that I'm feeling sad because they can see it, you know? And so that's kind of how I started off doing drag, and it was really a form of therapy to me. And I guess it still is to this day, but less so than it was back then, because back then it was very much a coping mechanism for something that I'd been through. And when I started to get some love and some appreciation for my work, then that just gave me so much more confidence and so much more motivation to carry on doing this career, you know?
Yeah. Oh, gorgeous. I mean, going towards the earlier years of your life, I think that's almost a universal shared truth with all queer folk, is at one point or another, you do put yourself in the shoes of whether it be TV characters, dressing up, anything like that, because I've had a similar shared experience. But then obviously it evolving to more mature traumas and difficult times in your life. That's one of many reasons why people start drag, and it's just such a beautiful thing that you can look inwards to deal with things, as opposed to having to reach out for different kinds of support or counsel, because you almost escape inside yourself, and that's gorgeous.
I mean, it just gives you a sense of freedom to be able to express yourself in ways that beforehand maybe you felt like unable to or not allowed to because of the pressures of society and the expectations of society. And for me, it allows me to access my effeminate side and to walk with do a supermodel walk down the street and to feel fabulous about it. Whereas if I am Harry, well, maybe not these days, charity has given Harry the confidence to be able to do that, but back then Harry wouldn't have been able to do that, because I know that I'd be getting looks and attracting attention and being spat at, possibly. So it's a balance of finding the freedom to do what is truly you, to be truly yourself by becoming another character.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think drag for me is less internal escapism and more kind of self-actualization and expansion on who I am. Because when I'm also Harry outside of this. So
wow.
when I was Harry pre-drag, I'd have the similar issues of struggling to find my turn in conversation, just feeling very, very walled in when no one really cared. So pushing the boat out this much in drag, you think, oh, if I can walk down the street like this and not care, I can thrive looking kind of, societally normal. You can, you can just do as you please. But yeah, it's kind of a catch-22. It's escapism, but it is also just building on who you are as well.
Definitely. But I think even escapism in itself, I think escapism has some connotations to it that is like a negative thing. It's like you're running away or like hiding from reality, when I don't think that that's the case with this kind of escapism, because you're living in your reality. You're just finding a way of coping with that reality and giving, like I say, I think you're escaping from the societal pressure to be something that is expected of you, and doing drag is about pushing the boundaries and breaking gender conformities and being punk, about it's the whole attitude of it is very punk. And I think as people who are challenging the stereotypes of what it means to be a man, I think it's important that we do that about what it means to be a woman and what it means to be gay. I think that weight rests on our shoulders.
Yeah, no, it's so true. Like the kind of derivative of punk being the quite hardcore thing. Like someone may look at your style and artistic output and think, oh, that's very punk. But I feel like even though I embrace more of the hyper femininity side and I find solace in pretty colors and design and that kind of thing, I still feel like it's sticking it to the man as well. There's punk in every form of.
I mean, like I say, drag in itself, the whole concept of it is punk. It's political,
Yes.
And there's no getting around that.
No, exactly. And I think whether or not you just want to throw on lash lipstick and throw and go wig and just go to a nightclub, even that with the worst intentions is still representing just differentiation from normal people. So even without knowing it, just being yourself in a slightly different vehicle, you're really helping a lot of other people feel comfortable as well.
Totally.
But yeah.
Something that I'm really interested to know is whether did the escapism feel more potent when you first started doing drag, or has it become more realised as you perfected your craft? Like, was it that initial kind of, I'm doing something that's true to me at the beginning, or have you realized it more now you've perfected your looks or perfected your personas on stage, that sort of thing?
I actually think it's probably the other way around. Like, escapism was more potent at the start of my drag journey because, like I say, it really was a form of therapy for me at the start, and it was my way of getting away from my reality. And although I didn't, like I say, see it as that back then, now I can look back and see it as me doing drag every day for a year was 100% me escaping, and it seems very obvious to me. Whereas now I've kind of gotten to know the character of Charity Kase, and it's almost like another life that I live. So it's not really I'm not really escaping. A lot of the time I feel like I'm escaping now being Harry from Charity. So it's a two-way street, you know. I think at the start when I was just experimenting, just getting into it and trying things out, it was all very new and it was like a really exhilarating feeling. And I still get that exhilarating feeling and I still get that rush, but it's just something that is almost a daily thing now. So it's lost that sense of escapism slightly for me. But if I want that sense of escapism, I know how to go about getting it, you know, and that's why I do cover myself in popcorn and stuff like that, because I just take it a lot further into a place that even my brain thinks is strange.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, popcorn. So you really threw me there because that was my absolute favorite thing that I've seen, especially being a favorite snack. But I think when I started, it was in the midst of me studying to be a vocalist. So at the time, it was this big, overwhelming sense of community that I was never seeing before university, and I wanted that excitement for me. And then I saw what you could do with it, and I wanted to turn it into this kind of stardom vehicle that I could just, whip up a look and a craft, and it just melded into this magical thing. But then as time went on and I kept doing makeup and I kept changing how I looked and how others perceived me, it did start to meld with who I am a little bit, and it did make me question, my sense of identity. Essentially, it's it's something that you can't really do too flippantly because it does take a grip. And as Charity said, you do have to make it a two-way street where it's, there's essentially inside you two parts. One is this kind of creative expression, and one is just how you are, straight after a shower. So it's it's odd, but I think for me it definitely was very externalized, but then I kind of brought it in and felt it a bit more as time's gone on. But yeah, again, as Charity says, you do get into a routine sometimes and you can lose that sense of wonder, but it's very easy to just remind yourself where you've come from. And I was raised Catholic and I used to literally pray the gay away. So for me to be doing this, it's such a distinct difference that you can't not be excited. Like even today, like I was absolutely thrilled just to paint some squiggles, do some graffiti. It was, it's truly magical. I think even if it diminishes, it never goes away.
And something that you highlighted to me, Rosie, is that that I hadn't even thought of before we started the discussion on this, was how drag artists provide escapism to an audience. And I was just hoping that you could expand on that, because it's such an important thing that we've been missing out on the last year, that I hope that you could expand on kind of what that means to you and what you hope you provide from other people and how you do that.
Yeah, when I started messing around with makeup before my first ever show, I didn't feel the gravity of what drag can do for other people, not just the person doing drag. I had people coming up, thanking me for just being there, and I really didn't understand why. But then I thought about it, and people go to their 9 to 5s. They can get so routinely stuck in normality. They see the same kinds of people. So seeing someone be so expressive and just so out of the box compared to what they're used to, I think it is so important like I don't know, like a TV show. You don't see TV sets in real life. You don't see game shows. I think it just removal from your normalcy. It's so important to have, and I can see it with the reaction of people that it does positively influence them. And if I can just make someone forget about their crap day at work, and then that's a job well done for me. And it was quickly what I felt became my mission when I saw that reaction in people. It's insane what drag can do for people.
Yeah, I agree. I think like with my performance and the stuff that I tend to do on stage, and even just my drag in general actually is kind of all fantasy based. It's nothing that's based too close to reality or the real world, even though it comes from feelings about the real world. It's still quite unreal. So I think that I like to think that in itself is a sense of escapism for people. And especially my performances are trying to take people into like a dream world sort of realm. And I do quite a lot of shocking freak show performance art. So I think that in itself is trying to get people's attention away from reality, even if sometimes, like I say, I'm reflecting reality in what I do, or trying to open people's eyes up to see a point that I'm trying to make through fantasy creatures crying on stage. But yeah, I like to think the drag provides the audience a sense of escapism just as much as it provides me a sense of escapism, you know?
No, exactly that. And that's why I love drag so much, because your performance style, you can give someone, the shock of their lives that they'll remember for a lifetime, but it will still be this positive,
Yeah.
This overwhelming sense of, out of the ordinary. And then I can sing, a funny song on stage, and it just, makes someone's day a little bit better. And it's any kind of drag is, so valid for doing this kind of job. It just reminds me why I love it so much. It's gorgeous.
Do you think the space, because I know we've been, a lot of things have been taking place virtually online at the moment, but there's still a community, there's still, drag is still integral within the queer community. Do you think that queer spaces themselves provide an essence of escapism, and how do you use them, and how do you give back to them, and that sort of thing? I'll hand it over to Rosie first.
Oh, that's going to take a bit of money, actually. Charity, do you want to take
Yeah,
lead on that?
I'll give this a go. So I think that for me personally, queer venues and queer spaces provide a sense of escapism because, as somebody who dresses out there even in the daytime and is camp and flamboyant, I stand out already, and I think that when I'm in a queer space, a queer safe space, I know that I'm not going to be judged for that sort of thing, and that's the sort of thing that makes me feel safe, knowing that I'm not going to be, verbally assaulted or physically assaulted because of my sexuality. And obviously that's an obvious thing, but I think that's the main point here, really. But another important thing to remember is that they don't make all queer people feel safe. And a lot of venues don't make a lot of queer people feel safe, and a lot of venues are quite exclusionary to trans people, to non-binary people, to lesbians. This is a big prominent thing in the gay community, and not even just like exclusionary in that sense, but when we have every gay club in London playing the same type of music because that's the stereotypical gay music that gays like, and it's like noughties pop or Ariana Grande and Lady Gaga. That's all well and good for people to like that. I'm not saying I don't like it, I do, but lots of people don't. Lots of gay people don't, and don't feel comfortable like listening to that, don't want to get up and dance to that. So I think that's also an important thing to remember, is although it's a queer safe space, it still doesn't encompass everybody, you know, and I think that that can be quite negative on the stereotype that is a gay person, you know. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, sorry for chucking it over to you, but I'm quite
Not at all.
conflicted about this because when I first was introduced to the queer community, I almost felt like it wasn't, you know, a real and of itself place. I just thought it was, you know, the best we could do. And my kind of lack of understanding of, you know, the queer community and like how broad it is and how, you know, self-sufficient it can be, I just thought it was, you know, oh, we can't go to a regular club, you know, and be ourselves, so we have to go to this kind of sublet extra, you know, on bit on the side. So for a long time I did think, you know, oh, I'm just kind of being shunted. But once you, you know, immerse yourself and you start to, you know, form, I mean, that's where, you know, chosen family comes into it. You meet these people at clubs and venues and online, and, you know, you merge into this, you know, unstoppable force that is a chosen family. And it's only then that you do realize that just because we have to, you know, make a space for ourselves, a safe space, it doesn't make it any less valuable than or normal as, you know, a bar or a regular club. And it took me a long time to figure that out. But Charity's right, there's a lot of in community discrepancies, and they think, oh, it's one size fits all for different types of queer folk, and it's definitely not. So there's a lot of management that needs to come into it. And, you know, even at the end of the day, it is a business and they need to make money. And however marketable it is with, you know, Dula Peep and Ariana Grande playing 24/7, it's, you know, it's something that has to be managed, and there has to be somewhere for everyone. And it's not just, you know, it's a place to escape. It's a home for a lot of people, and it's been a home for me.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree as well. I think that I think that's also a very strong point, that why is it a gay club? Why is it necessary for us to be separated? You know, there's a big part of me that agrees with that, and that being gay, instead of being separated, should be being normalized, because it is normal. You know what I mean? And I think that having, you know, separate spaces can sometimes be maybe a negative thing. Like, I don't know for sure, but these are thoughts that occur to me about the normalization of homosexuality and transgender people, and, you know, the just the normalization of it all is really the goal. So should we be segregating ourselves?
Yeah,
You know, I completely get what you're saying there.
Yeah, it's difficult because you do, as much as you want representation for each individual person, and, you know, whether that be in spaces or by definition or label, it also does separate people. But I mean, my initial stance was, you know, why should we have to be doing this, you know, yada yada. But it has now developed, like, don't get me wrong, I will stand and I will go down with the ship if the bar was on fire that I work at. It's, you know, it's a place to be proud of. And if you can welcome people into that, I think you do then blur the lines from segregation to, you know, normalcy. Because admittedly, you will have seen, as I have, the amount of straight people that love coming to gay clubs and queer spaces. So it's not a deadpan segregation, but it is slowly, you know, becoming a blend of people. So I think slowly we will progress into bigger queer venues, which will then be more inclusive, and then the whole world will be queer but inclusive, so it will just become normal.
I agree. I think the day that the day that queer people stop complaining about straight people being in their venues will be a day that we are thankful for.
Exactly.
Because we, like, my aim is integration. You know. Yeah.
No, exactly.
I think that leads so perfectly into what I was thinking about, because for me, one of the big things about the movement of drag towards, I hate saying the word mainstream, because to me, I hate the word mainstream, but the way that drag has moved for me, that I've seen the last few years, is its celebration of femininity, and that's been so important to me. That femininity isn't a silly thing, or isn't, like, you know, played for jokes, although comedy is wonderful and I love it, but the celebration of femininity for me has been so important with drag kind of becoming more popular. But I was wondering whether drag becoming more popular would lead to more escapism, for leading to bigger crowds, more diverse crowds, or whether, as Rosie highlighted to me before, whether more people doing different concepts would maybe lead to a more restricted form of how you escape into different looks and different personas and that sort of thing.
So you're asking me?
Yeah.
So I think that the escapism itself will not change, because the escapism comes from the experience of, you know, looking in the mirror and not recognizing yourself, and that feeling is the really fulfilling, overwhelming feeling, which is the reason that I carry on doing this every time. And so I think that that will still be there, and in my opinion, like, having more people do more types of drag and more varieties of drag and more, or transformation art even, or, you know, is only providing more escapism for more people to experience, and inspiring more escapism as well. So I don't see any negative in it becoming more mainstream. You know, I think that that's a really positive thing, and for someone like me, it means that I can make a career off it, and it's an actual viable career now, which is, you know, I'm sat here having this conversation with you because it is a viable career and it's an interesting one. So yeah, I think it's only a positive thing, really.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. You know, people can throw their toys out the pram and say, oh, you know, but everyone's, you know, how many looks can you do? Like, how, you know, everything's going to already have been done. But I think that takes, you know, the people who are in drag just for, you know, the kind of cookie cutter, like, you know, whip your hair about to Ariana type queens, from the people who want to, you know, just express, as opposed to hitting a criteria, and it's just their thoughts, you know, put into practice essentially. And if anything, it's a boon rather than a takeaway, because you end up having more accessible venues and bigger audiences, and as artists, you know, all we want to do is, you know, kind of have our art validated to a degree. And I think a lot of people would be lying if they said it was completely, you know, out of their interest, because who doesn't like a bit of validation? But yeah, and like the opportunities, like the resources that we get this platform to talk about what drag is for people that, you know, people may not have even thought of. And for instance, through the pandemic, the amount of green screens that people have got to, you know, create these illusionary escapist videos where, you know, 10, 20 years ago, no one would be thinking that. No one would think, oh, all these queer folk are going to be in their homes creating, you know, online content or videos for, you know, for essentially the sake of it. But here we were, and it's, you know, there's more money in it. There's, you know, career possibilities. Like, I'm able to, you know, now do this as a job, and it's yeah, it's absolutely stunning. Like, the mainstream of it is nothing but a bonus.
I think, and like you said about the celebration of femininity, and you know, if you look at the history of drag and the roots of drag, it hasn't always done that. It has been misogynistic in the past, and I think that, you know, we still run a risk of that in this day and age. And
Yeah.
I think that that's why, you know, that's my motivation towards doing my style of drag. I try to show beauty in the conventionally unattractive, the conventionally ugly, in you know, I'm not going to shave my legs because I know lots of beautiful women who have hairy legs, and I'm not going to tuck because I also know lots of beautiful women who have penises. So there's no, you know, I think, like I said earlier on, I think as men or women or anybody, or as people challenging the stereotypes of what it means to be our gender, we should be doing that for the gender that we're also dressing up as well, instead of just like taking the mick out of it. And I like to think that we're coming to a place where we do understand that more, and big media outlets are no longer using terms which are misogynistic, and I hope that that's becoming more commonplace, you know. And I think that hopefully seeing more different styles of drag and bringing light to more different styles of drag and artists, then that it can only broaden the spectrum, and hopefully this polished perfect vision of what it means to be a woman, which is very high standard of like perfect tiny waist, huge boobs, you know, big lips, big lashes,
The
which
men's standard of women.
yeah, exactly, which has been enforced upon us by the media throughout our whole life, and which is very problematic and damaging to lots and lots of women all over the world. I think that sometimes drag queens can reinforce that by doing like by creating that exact image and by focusing on only creating that exact image. And that's why I think it's important that there is alternative artists like ourselves who are experimenting with it a little bit further and proving that you can be more than just that image, you know. Yeah, that's
I've definitely noticed it kind of from what I've seen going in that direction, and I've just been so grateful for it. Like it's just been, especially as you said, like mainstream outlets have taken up drag as a very much something that is completely normalized to have on mainstream TV. And so, you know, we all had drag on our TV during lockdown, which was such an amazing it was amazing escapism for me and my friends. And I was just so grateful for it. And then coming out of lockdown now, I've seen the first few kind of like tentative shows take place. And I was just wondering whether you think, well, for yourselves as well, but also for your audience, do you think the escapism is more potent after that time away? Do you think it's changed? Do you think that people will appreciate shows and the art even more now that we've had so long without it?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I did my first post-lockdown show on the weekend, just gone, and it was for a hen do, and the energy is unmatched of a group of women enjoying a drag performance. But when I say it's never been to the level that I experienced this weekend, it was insane. You can tell that everyone is thirsting for just entertainment, just feel-good factor where they don't have to think about, you know, stats, figures, you know, kind of worrying about, you know, who's around them, that kind of thing. It's just entertainment, and just that weight is lifted. And people have been so thirsty for that kind of, just that moment of just not caring and just seeing someone flop about on stage. It's absolutely gorgeous. Like that, people have definitely been in demand and needed this. And I think it's going to hopefully keep the momentum because the energy is wonderful. I'm not sure if you've experienced the same, Charity.
Yeah, I've been working for the past couple of weeks now, and so I think that, you know, for the first week it was chucking it down here all week, and so my shows that I was at, and I've just been doing some go-go sets and working on the door, so I've not really been doing a full show, not yet anyway. But the first week was a bit of a struggle, to be honest, because it was just so quiet because of the rain and the weather was terrible. So it was kind of performing to and you're already on half capacity, so you know the crowd isn't as appreciative because there's not as much of a vibe. But then when it is full to half capacity, then it is a really good vibe, and it is definitely escapism, and it's definitely providing escapism for these people who need it. But yeah, it's not the same as it was. But at this point I think we're just like grateful for anything that we can get, because God, I miss the attention.
Yeah. Well, it's weird because people are returning to normality for their kind of level of escapism, because people are saying, oh, I can't wait to see shows again, as if that was their kind of normal, you know, weekend plans or their weeknight plans. It would, you know, that would be their normalcy, but they are going to have that release and that boost, and just to release their inhibitions a little bit. And yeah, it's odd because to gain your escapism, you have to get some normality back, which I think goes to show that we have all struggled through the pandemic to some extent.
That's that leads us on to one of our audience questions, if it's okay to move on to that. Somebody asked how you escaped during lockdown, how you achieved that, and how it affected you. Obviously, it affected everyone in lots of different ways, but I was hoping that you could tell us how you kind of escaped during that time.
So during like the first stage of lockdown, I tried to focus on painting and creating art. And then after a month or so, I decided that I was going to do another daily drag thing. So I did the 200 days of drag during lockdown, which was really like, just gave me something to do. And it was kind of a way of staying sort of relevant and trying to stay connected to my art and my career whilst having no work on, and it was also a good way of staying creative and challenging myself every day, and just keeping myself busy, really. And then since then I've just been focusing again on painting and trying to stay artsy. I mean, I've always tried to create something new every day, like something artsy, whether it's a drawing or a painting or a look or something. So I've just taken that into practice even more so over the last year and a half, because that's what gives me a sense of fulfillment, and that's what makes me feel good about something. If I haven't created something that day, then I just go to bed feeling like unfulfilled, like I need to hit that fulfillment button that's like inside me, otherwise I'm not complete for the day. So that's how I've kept myself busy.
Yeah, I mean, as the pandemic like hit, it was such a struggle to find motivation. Like I struggle with borderline personality disorder, which really does inhibit my kind of it makes it hard to be self-sufficient in terms of what you can kind of feel good with, and I rely on a lot of people and social connections to keep myself maintained, and it allows me to keep myself in check through the kind of experiences I have with other people. And with that going, it was just the depths, and all the motivation I had just out the window. But it was a bit of a learning curve for I've never had that restraint from people before, and it spoke to the power of drag to me, because when I was able to eventually even just paint a face, it completely shifted my perspective, and I felt that fulfillment. I felt exactly the same. I'd be going to bed, the days would merge, and it would just be this mess of lack of lucidity. But yeah, drag really helped me nail things together, and people were doing digital drag shows, and we all got green screens, and we were filming silly videos for each other. And yeah, so for me, drag really kind of helped me keep afloat with the isolation of it all. But yeah, no, drag is cool.
Yeah, we definitely we made use of the drag quizzes that we were getting from like our London friends, because for me personally, I just found it really hard to be motivated, because I'm a creative person, but it was such a strange circumstance. I just couldn't kind of finish my creative things. But yeah, so we have some questions from the audience. Quill has asked, do you ever get stopped by people when you're in drag and ask for photos? And how do you feel about that? After the performance, is it ever annoying, or do you enjoy it? And how do you feel about being the spectacle? And are you and we looked at, and is it about you, or is it about being like a spectacle, and how do you feel about that? I'll hand over to Charity first.
So I really like taking photos of people, because it shows that they appreciate like the hard work that I put into creating the look. So as long as somebody's like polite and nice, and when they ask for a photo, then I'm happy to do that, and it's not a problem to me. Like I'm always eager to please anybody that's like appreciative of my work. Um, and I feel like people do see me as a spectacle to be looked at, but that's kind of the intention with a lot of my work. Um, it's kind of, I feel like I've always kind of been seen as a spectacle to be looked at, going through high school, going through like growing up, and feeling like the odd one out, and feeling like, you know, I went to high school with pink buttons on my blazer and like blue clip-in extensions in my hair. It was not a cute look, and I was clearly very extravagant. So I've always kind of been the spectacle anyway, naturally. So I think this is kind of taking ownership of that, and having control over it. There's a lot of drag for me comes from, but I think for a lot of people actually comes from not being able to control what other people might think of you, and not being able to control other people's maybe prejudices, which you have no control over, and you have no control over their prejudices against you, which are things that you can't control, like my sexuality, for example. I can't control that. I have no choice in that. And I also can't control that they think that that is completely disgraceful. And I think that being able to create a new character that I have the control over, is really empowering, and gives me a reason to do it. Being able to create like this wicked witch villain, evil villain character who is able to turn you into a frog within the blink of an eye, is like, that's the power that I always wished I had when I was young growing up. And that's why I idolized these like villainous, wonderful women or creatures who had this power that I only dreamed of having when I felt so weak myself.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was less about kind of embracing my extrovertedness, because I'd be afraid to wear like a pink t-shirt in case someone thought, oh, that's suspicious. But it was through kind of doing drag that I now enjoy being the spectacle, and it's given me that extra confidence outside of drag, which I've never had. So yeah, I love all the attention, all the eyes. I'd be lying if I didn't say I absolutely love the attention. But yeah, if people, yeah, as you said, ask nicely, I'm more than happy to bend over backwards for someone. It's a brief encounter for me, and for them, they remember it because it's very memorable. It's seeing something so out of the ordinary. Yeah, it's a special moment for people, and as I say, like, I want to give people that escapism and that little piece of happiness wherever I can. So to deny someone a photo, I think that would be pretty counterintuitive. So yeah.
Great, thank you. I'm going to hand over to Alice for our next question, because I think she might know the query.
So my dad just submitted a question. He would like to know, most entertainers are free to just be entertainers. As drag entertainers, there is the imposed pressure to advocate social change through your performance. Is this responsibility something that you embrace or would prefer to avoid?
I think you've got to embrace it. Well, me personally, I feel like the need to embrace it. I think that I'm very opinionated. I'm very like forward. I don't hold back, and I like to speak my mind. I'm open. I'm a good listener, and I'm open to listening to other ideas, and I'm open to being educated. But if I think that I know something is wrong, then I'll happily speak out on that. And so I like to use my platform for that as much as possible anyway. But I think that, as I said earlier, as people almost representing the LGBTQ community, I think that it's our responsibility to be a voice and be a face and be a representative, and not only educate ourselves but educate other people. And so I wear that like a badge of pride, because I don't think that I would get the same fulfillment out of my career if I wasn't challenging things and fighting, you know.
No, it's so true. Like I don't care what your opinion is. If you're, you know, a drag performer or someone in the realm of drag, it's not something to be debated. If you're in drag and your opinion is anything other than, you know, fighting for just, you know, the non-judgmental acceptance of every kind of form of being, you know, that's what we do. We're pushing the boat so far out that people can accept, you know, maybe different sizes, ethnicities, you know, any kind of mind, like kind of smaller group than, you know, the norm. That's who we stand for. So if your opinion is anything other, then you're, you know, kind of, I think you should take off the wig essentially, because it's so important. It's you know, at the base of what we do. I can make someone feel good for an evening and show someone, you know, some escapism, but on a deeper level and a more long-term level, we're slowly changing what society is. And if you're not doing that, then it's, you know, half the job, I say.
And also I think you know, there's a lot of people that don't get involved with politics and don't make the effort to get involved with politics, and they think it's too confusing for them, or too I don't know, just so far away from their world. And a lot, and that goes for straight people and gay people and everybody. That goes for people all over the world that don't get involved with politics because they feel like it's too far away from them and their life. But it's not hard. It's not that confusing. I'm just letting you know, like, it's really not that confusing. You don't need to know everything about it. You just need to know the basics. And it's very easy to learn. There's lots of resources to help you learn. And I think as people, like I say, representing our community, it's important that we know. It's important that we learn and educate ourselves on our history as queer people, but on also the current situation and things going on in the world. So yeah, that's what I've got to say.
As I say, like, it's so simple. It's human rights, and that's not up for debate. It's just our right to be happy, healthy, and just live. Like, period, point blank, finished, done. Yes, it's very simple.
Yeah.
I think that's also part of what I love about how kind of debates are going on more now. The development of them in the UK, for example, in the last few years, is that we've finally started saying, like, well, some things are not up for debate. Some things we're not going to argue about. Like, you either agree that everyone gets to live their life how they like to, or you're not worth my time right now.
But, prejudice.
Yeah, exactly. Or you're a bad person. Like, let's just, you know. Okay, we have a question from Jess saying, leading on from the lockdown conversation, has lockdown changed the trajectory of your career as a performance artist? Have you rethought it? Have you rethought what you'd like to put out in the world? I feel like that's very much what we were talking about, but has lockdown, because I know some of the people in different creative industries, lockdown has kind of freaked some people out about, you know, the kind of stability of it. Is that the same for you, or no?
I mean, coming back into it, I've actually been quite shocked, because there was this big anticipation in the exit plan as to, you know, what are we going to be able to do? How much work are we going to be able to participate in? But with the kind of the mix of online to in person, I've never been so busy in my life. It's been insane, just the amount of people I've been able to reach, because the platform was all online. You know, people were taking the time to look at, you know, the internet more, as opposed to, you know, focusing on real life, because that was where our socializing was, that's where our networking was. So I've reached a lot of new kind of bases for work, and it has changed, but for me it's been a positive one, because I've been able to reach more people, the right people who want to book the right performer. You know, we've been able to make that link. So it has been, through a curse, a bit of a blessing. But yeah, it's definitely changed the trajectory, absolutely.
I'm not sure it has for me, really. I just really miss being on stage and doing performances. I still want to do like the same style of performances and to be fighting for the same things. So I think if anything, it's just maybe more motivated to get back on stage. And it obviously it's shocking to see your career and your whole life be like shut down and to not be able to make any money, and like that was hard, and that was a real struggle, like being able to afford to live when I don't have any gigs coming in was hard work. And I know lots of people who in my position got a job, but luckily I do other things for money as well. Well, not those sort of things, but I paint and stuff like that. So I had another source of income, which was really nice and good to be able to rely upon. But at the end of the day, the entertainment industry and the arts industry is never going to be shut down, and like for good, because you know creatives are the one industry that machines will never ever be able to reproduce. So that gives me some sense of comfort. And I think it's not just our career, like the whole of the arts industries, and lots of other careers have been shut down entirely. There's plenty of dentists who've been sat at home for the past year not being able to do anything as well. So I think it works all around the world in lots of ways. We're all struggling. We're just one ridiculous job.
Quill would also like to know, do either of you have a favourite look that you've created for a performance or just by yourself?
No.
I have way too many. I couldn't choose.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking like, if you mentioned one, I could probably try and like search for it, but there's so many that are just amazing.
I really like my carrot, but that was years ago now, but that's always stuck with me as a good one. I really like my carrot. I like doing food looks, I like covering myself in food. The popcorn was good, and the macaroni cheese, and the pizza as well. I did a pizza recently. I like being food.
I think the answer is more of a slideshow as opposed to one time, because it's so like there's always been a best like moment in time, like kind of a few golden where everything's just lined up, everything's worked, the stars aligned.
And it's also just like the one that we're working on right now, like this one. This is my favorite look, and then tomorrow, the one that I do tomorrow, that will be my favorite look.
No, exactly.
Just the current one, because I'm always developing, we're always like improving. So my favorite look's going to be the one that I do next week.
Like, what's your favorite holiday? The one I'm on right now.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Kind of like that. Yeah, I feel that.
My favorite holiday is going to be next year when I go away for.
I haven't thought about it like that. Oh, that's so true. Frank asked, how do you manage drawing the line between performance and identity? I feel like that's quite a deep one. If you want a few minutes.
I think, well, for me, performance has always been quite whimsical, and I think the kind of the look, unless it's completely dictated, like if I'm doing a character for a performance, or if I'm dressed for a specific kind of performance, if I'm just dressed as me and I'm say singing in my act, then it kind of the line is blurred, because I'm the extension of myself doing what I already have been doing my entire life, which is music. And it's just a development, and it's just an evolution. Like the kind of final form of my Pokemon evolution is me on stage with a mic in hand and like big curly hair. So for me, the kind of performance, it always comes, like my performances are always what I find entertaining, and it's more inviting people in on the joke as opposed to trying to make people laugh or kind of wow people. Is you can kind of hop on or hop off. That's your kind of prerogative. But I don't know, it's a difficult one with performance, because identity doesn't really kind of cross my mind when I'm on stage. But I suppose that might be different for you, Charity, because you're quite storytelling, quite narrative based.
Yeah, so
visual.
I think a lot of my character, like my looks are based around characters and creatures, and you know, it's not really like, I see Charity Kase as kind of like a shape-shifting spirit or something, and it kind of depends on the character that I'm in, as the look that I'm in, as to how I'm acting as well. So you know, if I'm in a traditionally feminine look, then I act different than if I'm in a scary look, for example. But it's always quite far away from what I know to be Harry. And looking in the mirror and seeing that reflection really just justifies that to me and reinforces that. So I'm not really thinking about, like you say, I'm not really thinking about Harry at that point. I'm playing this character that I've created. So I think that although I use my life experience as Harry and things I've been through in my performance art, there's no line that needs to be drawn really, because Charity is a creation that I have made, and Harry, like I say, Harry is who I have always known. But I think like playing villainous characters and playing monstrous evil things, there is a line that I have to draw sometimes between like what is okay and what is okay for me to say as this character, and what isn't okay for me to, you know, where's the line drawn there? That's the question that I've had a few times to myself, is like, would this be okay if it wasn't me dressed as a creature, you know?
Yeah.
And is it okay that I'm telling this story in this way? So it's an interesting question, and there is definitely a line to be drawn there, just not necessarily between my identity.
Yeah, I think it's more, it speaks more to maybe style, because it has to come from you, and you know, the content of your performance and the look, it has to stem from you.
Yeah.
Unless you're, you know, just kind of doing a replicator of something. But if it's organic and it's your original content, then it does kind of, your artistry comes from who you are. So I suppose it is kind of one and the same, but that would maybe be referred to as style as opposed to identity, or like performance style, look style. But yeah, no, it is an interesting question actually.
Yeah, I think it's cool because when you learn about storytelling, when you're developing characters, you're always meant to make them realistic and relatable, even if it's sea creature or, you know, a cave dweller or something. A part of them is a part of you, and it's how you want to express a part of yourself that maybe you don't even want to think about. But I think we've got time for one last question, and it's a good one. To sum us up, it's from Emily, and it's 3 words to describe your drag aesthetic. I'll hand over to Charity first.
Oh gosh.
I've put you on the spot a bit here.
I'd say fantasy. Shocking. And punk.
Oh, 3 words. I mean, if I was going for the branding, I'd say sweet, fruity, and mostly cheap. But Lord knows I've spent far too much money on my drag for it to be called mostly cheap. I don't know. I want to say warm, welcoming. It's a bit flirty. I don't know. I like to keep it light as much as I do like to hit the nail on the head when it counts. It's yeah. We'll make those 3 work, sure.
I love that. That's like my 2 personalities. Those words combined. Just like, what have I woken up today as?
There's no middle ground.
There isn't. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us, Rosie and Charity. It's just been absolutely fantastic to hear your thoughts, and for the conversation around drag to be so connected with our theme of escapism for the festival. I've learned so much. I hope everyone's learned so much at home. Thank you so much for joining us. I just want to ask if you've got any last thoughts, and if not, I'll hand back over to Alice so we can say goodbye and say goodbye to everyone at home.
Final thoughts are thank you for the team, and thank you for having a lovely conversation, Charity.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me and for valuing our crazy opinions.
Silly little dress-up games.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Again, I'd like to just invite everybody to our following events. This week, we have an event every week. You can go online at kentparisfestival.com to find more information and registration. So thank you all. This is great.
We'll leave you now, but have a nice night, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.